forgot to include this wedge-shaped one. Anyway, someone was asking about just how to set up a shader, even just, and this is for Unity. If you're using something else, you can use the shader, but you'll have to make some modifications. I might be able to help you. It would depend what you're using. So a shader is basically just a set of instructions on how to render to the screen. So even a basic sprite or something like that, being drawn to the screen, just how you view it, you have your sprite image and you want to just draw it to the screen. That's still a shader. It's just really rudimentary. But even like in NES days, they have palette swaps. They take palette data instead, and and sort of like a baseline of indexed pixels. Anyway, won't get too into it. Again, this is only for Unity, so hopefully this helps you. Go ahead and click this link. All assets. Going to want the FX ring wedge. Do save link as. Just do it to the desktop. We're going to need gradient map multiply. I'd already saved it. We will need the glow shaders built into it, so maybe I'll cut that out. I thought I did one that had the glow stuff cut out, so you could just use it however you want. But we'll see. And we're going to need a little bit of a texture. That I had. It's just a simple one. No? Dude, I've uploaded so much stuff to here, I don't see it. Is it? We'll do this in tutorial clouds. Just wasted too much time. So, I have a new project here. There's your project folder. Assets is the default thing, so this is where you can actually make, this is where Unity looks to find your assets. You can make a new folder if you want, but it's just real quick. So go ahead and grab those things, click, drag them down into Unity, pick our, nope, other one, just drag it in here. So now it already knows that it's a shader because it's .shader. Got this cloud here, have materials. It just auto-generated that based on how Unity imports Blender things. So what you can do is just drag this into the scene here. And then we're going to make our own material. So we're going to right click, create material. And so what material is, it's a shader plus any inputs that you're giving the shader. And an input can be values, it can be a texture. So now we have our shader here, we click our material, and it opens up the shader values. And then we drag this texture on here. So now we have a simple shader right here, just clouds. I don't know why I couldn't find this one. I thought I had included it too. Oh, it's an instance. Click that. Slash, I'm going to go ahead and upload this too. I really thought I'd put it in there. It's kind of huge. Whoops. Anyway. So now we have this out here just being drawn by the default shader. Anything you want to draw to the screen is going to need a renderer in Unity. And if you're using a mesh, you're going to need like a mesh filter too. So the mesh filter is like looking for the actual mesh. And then the mesh renderer is going to want a material. And so we have our new one here. So we'll go ahead and drag it up here to our materials. You can also drag it to the screen. So if we undo that, just drag it on here. And now we have this. And that looks not great, so could do that new one. What was it called? Generic, that's right. Find it. Did I drag it to the right spot? Yeah. There we go. Click Save Link As, Desktop. If you don't have Photoshop, I will go ahead and export that to, oops, a simple JPEG or something. So let's say, we don't like those clouds. We'll click back on our material. We can go select here, and it'll just look at all textures in your program or in your project. Or you can just drag it up here onto the shader. One thing to note, when you're making changes right here, so you click on your object here, or you can click on it in the scene, and it'll open up, once we have that material on there, it gave us a default material, but you might not have it right away. Once you put it on there, then it's going to open up the material values down here. Note that this is editing the base material object. At runtime, it creates instances. So when you make changes here, like change the color or whatever, it won't affect this universally or permanently. But when you do it at edit time, it does. So it's just something to keep in mind. This is like the base, the foundation of like what you want this to look like. We do, whatever we want to do. So this sets the different values. We have the tiling and things like that. And it looks like we're not having an issue, so I don't know if... Oh, so the glow isn't... Let's hit play to make sure the... So yeah, there's no error. So it's like we're passing these values, but we're not using the replacement shader thing. I mean, it's the glow project. I explained it in there, but... let's see here. If I answered all your questions. So yeah. Is it a script that I put onto a shader object or something? So, kind of. A shader is a set of instructions. You can also do right-click, create shader. It doesn't matter which one you pick. This is just an alternate way of doing it. And then you can just click on this link. Control A, see, it's just a script, like it's just text. You just save it as .shader to work with Unity. You can save it as other things like, I think it's .fx in XNA. I can't remember. That's the only other one I really used, but it kind of depends. But hopefully that covers it. Again, we'll just go through it. Material is a shader plus its inputs. Even if you're just drawing a sprite to the screen, you're actually using a quad. So you could do game object, 3D object, quad. And again, it uses the default shader. But if we wanted something else, then you would do like orthographic if you really wanted. Like if you're just drawing sprites like 2D. The standard shader doesn't even take a texture necessarily. It's more material based. So when we do that, create a quad, again, it has a collider here. We don't need that. It has a mesh filter, which takes the mesh information. So we have this Blender file here that I provided, but the actual mesh is actually this one right here. So a Blender file is a little more complicated, but it's just as fast as drop those in there. And you need a mesh renderer. And these are components on the object, here in the scene or over here in the hierarchy. So it needs a mesh and it needs a renderer. You'll need different kind of renderers if you're doing like bones and stuff, like for animation. But for simple animations like for this, you don't need it. The renderer needs a material. So we have that one that we created. We do right click, create, material, mesh to matte. Click here to choose the shader we want. Once you drag the shader in here, or you create a new one, this will just auto-generate. So it just looks in your project to find all your shaders. Gradient map multiply. It doesn't have a texture yet. So So we can go ahead and drag that up there. And, you know, we're looking at this quad. We haven't done anything to it yet. So we can, again, drag it like this, or we can find it in the hierarchy, change this material right here. Same thing, it's going to find all the materials in your project. That's why naming conventions are really important, because once this goes along, you're going to have a billion materials. And then you can say, okay, I want my slash materials or whatever. So you click that, and it'll load it up right there. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions still. Can't wait to see what you do. Take care.